Hello, grade. Hello, grade 7. Today we're going to be covering chapter 3, lesson 1, Earth's people. We have been studying many elements that could affect the earth, and today we are going to be studying the most important element, which is people who live on earth. What makes the earth's population or the earth's people grow very fast? We have two main elements. We have the falling death rate and the rising birth rate. What does it mean, the death rate? Actually, the death rate means the number of deaths compared to the total number in population in a given time. And the birth rate is the number of babies born compared to the total numbers of population in a given time. So these two elements, which is the following death rate, the falling death rate, and the rising birth rate, will affect the population in general. So if we have less death rate and more birth rate, population will grow very fast. The death rate has gone down nowadays. Why? Because nowadays we have better health care, more food, and cleaner water. And these are the most important elements for people to live. That's why the death rate is falling down or has gone down nowadays. So again, if we're going to talk about the causes, which we are having here two causes, falling death rate, which means less, and rising birth rate, which means more, will affect the population growth in general or the people growth. So if I ask what are the two elements that affects the people growth or the population growth, you will tell me the falling death rate and the rising birth rate. Actually, when we are studying Earth's people, will find that over the past 60 years, the birth rate has been falling, even though the population is growing, but we'll find that the birth rate is falling. That's because the death rate has been higher than the birth rate. Yes, nowadays we are having the death rate is higher than the birth rate. And the United Nations says that the population should reach its peak by the year 2050 before it begins to fall all over again. Population grows at different rates in different parts of the world. Why? Because families all over the world are influenced by their culture and their religion. Actually, in different parts of the world, you'll find countries that encourage people to have more babies. That's because of their culture of large groups or their religion. But you'll find other countries who did not encourage people to have more babies. So it differs from a country to another country according to their culture and their religion. We're going to be talking about a very important element, which is doubling time. What does it mean, doubling time? It's the number of years it takes a population to double its size based on its current growth rate. So when we are doubling the number of population, it takes time. So the number of years which the population will take in order to double in size, that's called doubling time. Let's move to another point. A growing population can cause many problems for people. Yes, actually, if the population is growing, if we are having more people, they will enjoy the resources. It causes problems. What are these problems? The first one, you'll find cities and towns are too crowded. Yes, and we can see this during the rush hours. Water supplies became polluted and diseases spread quickly. Also, jobs will be hard to find, and at the end, if you can't find jobs, families will live in poverty. What problems could growing population cause to the environment? So we have two types of problems, to people and to the environment. Actually, more fuel is needed for cars and homes because people need this fuel in order to make their life work. So miners will drill for more energy resources. More farms are needed because they need food. So more trees will be cut down. More factories create air and water pollution. Yes, because factories needs to work double in order to cover all the supplies for people. So they will produce more smokes, which will create air, and also they will throw the rubbish in the water, which will also give us water pollution. Many people are working hard to clean up the environment. Yes, we have volunteer people who are working very hard in order to clean up the environment. They use energy resources that do not cause pollution to the environment, such as solar, wind, geothermal resources. Let's move to another part. How do people decide where to live? Actually, people used to live in places which are somewhere close to work. Also, they live according to religious reasons. Also, they will try to live in places where they can find their basic needs, including shelter, food, and jobs. So, this is the main idea. People will live in places who will provide them, which will provide them with their basic needs, such as shelter, job, food, and drink. Let's move to another slide here. The geographic pattern of people live is called population distribution. Yes, when we are studying people Earth, we are studying where people live. And people live in an area and they leave an area empty according to their basic needs. So when we are studying the geographic pattern of how people live in a place, this is called the population distribution. The average number of people living within a square mile or a square kilometer is called population density. Yes, so we are studying two main important factors, population distribution and the density inside the area. So when we are studying population distribution, we find the areas that people live in. Then we take an area and we find its density, which means the number of people who are living within this area. So we find that a densely populated area has a lot of people, and a sparsely populated area will have a fewer people. Also, we have urban areas where cities are located and they are densely populated, and we have rural areas are not densely populated. Why people used to live in urban areas? Because urban areas will provide them with more sources of water, shelter, food, and better jobs. Let's move to another factor which affect the population growth, which is the migration. Migration means to move from one place to another place. And migration is one of the main reasons behind the population change. What are the two words that could describe how people move? The first one is emigrate. When people leave their home to live in another place within the same nation, for example, when people move from the village to a city, or when people leave one nation to another, this is called emigrate. For example, when people emigrate from Europe to the United States, this is called emigrate. Migration is moving from one place to another. And actually migration is one of the main reasons behind population changes. Actually, also emigrate is when people, we have the other word which is emigrate, and emigrate is when people enter a new country to live there. So we have emigrate and emigrate. So immigrant is very important because it's when people move from a country to another country. People leave from one area to another area for many factors. We have push factors and pull factors. The push factors are bad economy, natural disasters such as floods and earthquakes, and war. People who flee a country because of violence or rule or war, they are called refugees. Pull factors such as better job, friends or family, or maybe a good university. Effects of migration. The effects of migrations are two important effects: the culture blending and the urbanization. Culture blending happens when people from different cultures move in the same place and live close together. So the culture mix and blends. So this could influence art, music, clothes, food, language of a place. The urbanization when cities grow larger and spread into nearby areas. The reason for this migration happen when people move for better jobs, so transportation and trade centers grow more services that are needed. This means that more jobs will be available in the medicine, education, housing, and food sectors. How megapolises formed? Urbanization is happening all over the world. In some areas, cities grow until they reach each other and connect with each other cities. A megapolis, a megalopolis is a huge city or cluster of cities with an extremely large population. That's what's meant by a megalopolis. Megalopolis is a huge city or a cluster of cities that are connected with with an extremely large population. That will be all the end of the lesson. Happy to see you, inshallah. See you soon.